All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're basically becoming detectives, and we're tackling a cold case, a really cold case. We're talking billions of years old, millions of kilometers away. Our subject? The planet Mars.
You know, when you picture Mars, this is probably what you see, right? Just this cold, dusty, red desert. It's totally silent, kind of frozen. And yeah, they call it the red planet for a super simple reason. The dirt is literally rusty. Iron minerals in the soil oxidized, and bam, you get that classic red color.
But here's the thing. Was it always like this? That's the real mystery here. Because it turns out, underneath all that red dust, there's a story of a completely different Mars. A lost world, really. And in this explainer, we're going to follow the clues and see what we can find.
Okay, so like any good investigation, you gotta start by examining the scene. To figure out what Mars lost, we need to get a handle on what it's like right now. So let's check out the current state of affairs.
So you look at the stats, and Mars is this weird mix of alien and surprisingly familiar. It's about half the size of Earth, which is a big difference. But get this, a Martian day, they call it a sol, is only about 30 minutes longer than ours. Super close. The year, though, that's another story. It's almost twice as long as an Earth year, so the seasons really drag on.
And man, is it cold. We're talking an average temperature of -63 Celsius. That's because its atmosphere is just flimsy. It's like trying to stay warm with a blanket full of holes. It just doesn't hold the heat. And that leads to some really wild situations.
Okay, this is one of my favorite weird Mars facts. Picture this. You're standing on the equator at noon. The ground at your feet could be a totally comfortable 20 degrees Celsius, like a nice spring day. But the air up by your head, it could be 0 degrees, freezing. So you could literally have spring at your feet and winter at your head at the exact same moment. How wild is that? So even though Mars is the smaller planet, its features are just epic, absolutely monumental. Take Olympus Mons. This isn't just a big volcano. It's the biggest one in the whole solar system. It's almost 22 kilometers high. To put that in perspective, that's nearly 3 times taller than Mount Everest. It's just staggering. And if you think that's big, check out Valles Marineris. Honestly, calling it a canyon feels like an insult. This thing is a massive system of chasms that, if you laid it across the United States, would stretch all the way from New York City to LA. It makes the Grand Canyon look like a little ditch in your backyard. No joke. So you might be wondering, how in the world do we know all this stuff? It's not just from looking through telescopes. Nope. We know it because for decades, we've been sending our own robotic detectives right to the scene. These rovers are our eyes, our hands, our mobile science labs on Mars. And this whole investigation has been building for a long time. It all started way back in 1965 with Mariner 4, which sent back just 22 grainy pictures. Then we started landing things. The real game changer was 1997, when we put the first wheels on the ground with the Sojourner rover. From there, every mission got bigger and bolder, leading to these incredible mobile labs like Curiosity and Perseverance. Perseverance even brought its own sidekick, a helicopter named Ingenuity that actually flew in that super thin Martian air. Amazing. So, what did all these robot detectives actually find? Well, they stumbled upon the single biggest clue in this whole case, a piece of evidence that completely flips the script on everything we thought we knew about Mars. Okay, so here's Exhibit A, the case for water. And the evidence is just, it's everywhere. Our rovers have seen things that look exactly like ancient river deltas, like the one at the end of the Mississippi. They have literally driven across dried up lake beds. And they've drilled into rocks and found specific minerals, things like hematite and gypsum, that on Earth only form when there's liquid water around. The whole landscape is scarred by what look like massive ancient floods. It's undeniable. So, the verdict is in. When you put all these clues together, you can only come to one conclusion. Billions of years ago, Mars wasn't this cold, dusty place we see today. It was a warm, wet world. A world with rivers and lakes and maybe
maybe even a whole ocean. But okay, solving one mystery just opens up another, even bigger one. If Mars used to be warm and wet, what on Earth happened? Where did it all go? What kind of planetary disaster turns a water world into a freezer? So, where did all that water go? I mean, some of it's still there, sure. It's locked up as ice in the polar caps and buried under the dirt. But we're talking about oceans of liquid water. They're just gone. And it turns out the answer isn't buried in the ground, it's up in the atmosphere. Or rather, what's left of it.
Mars still has an atmosphere today, but honestly, it's just a ghost of what it used to be. It's almost all carbon dioxide. But the real problem isn't the ingredients. It's the fact that there's just so little of it.
Let me put this in perspective for you. The atmosphere on Mars is about 100 times thinner than what we have here on Earth. The air pressure is so incredibly low that liquid water just can't exist on the surface. If you poured a glass of water on the ground, it would literally boil away into space, even if it was freezing cold outside. It just can't stick around.
And so, we found our culprit, the prime suspect. Here's what we think happened. About 4 billion years ago, the molten core of Mars cooled down and basically stopped spinning. When that happened, the planet's protective magnetic field just turned off. It was like dropping the shields on a starship. Without that magnetic shield, the sun's solar wind, this constant blast of particles, just hammered Mars for billions of years, stripping its atmosphere away bit by bit, and all that water just escaped into space.
So, okay, case closed on the missing water. But you know how it is, you solve one mystery and a bunch of new ones pop up. And these are the big ones, like, was there ever life in that water? And what other weird cosmic dramas are playing out on Mars and its moons right now?
And speaking of the moons, there's actually a really great human story behind how we found them. Back in 1877, this astronomer, A$AP Hall, was looking for Martian moons and was getting nowhere. He was totally frustrated, about to give up the search entirely. But his wife, Angelina, told him, no, just try one more night. And you know what? He listened. The very next night, he found Deimos. A week later, he found the other one, Phobos. And as a tribute to her encouragement, he named the biggest crater on Phobos Stickney, which was her maiden name. So there's this permanent monument up there just because of a little bit of spousal support. I love that.
But the story of Phobos gets even crazier. It has this really dramatic, kind of dark future ahead of it. See, it's orbiting way too close to Mars, and the planet's gravity is slowly reeling it in. Every year, it gets about 1.8 centimeters closer. In about 50 million years, it's going to cross this invisible line called the Roche limit. And at that point, Mars's gravity will literally tear the moon to shreds. It'll be completely ripped apart, and all the debris will form a brand new dusty ring around Mars. So we're going to miss the moon, but hey, Mars is going to get a ring.
And that brings us right back to the biggest unsolved mystery of them all. We found all the clues, right? We see the ancient rivers, the dry lake beds, all the evidence of water. It all points to a planet that once upon a time could have supported life. So the ultimate question, the one that keeps us sending these rovers and planning for future missions, is could those clues eventually lead us to find life itself? Could we finally find out if we were ever alone in the solar system? Now that is the mystery that keeps us going back.